For somebody who preaches PMA, J. Cal, you sure have an awful lot of negative things to say about the NWA. That's a message I got recently. And I guess I haven't been giving the most glowing reviews of the National Wrestling Alliance. And I think that might be a byproduct of, I want more. I want better. And I'm actually surprised some of you aren't on my side of this. I'm surprised some of you aren't championing the cause I'm trying to preach here, because I'm not looking for perfection. No. I'm looking for consistency, and I'm looking for growth, and I'm looking for the betterment, and I'm looking for at least a program that was on the same par of the first 3 seasons of NWA Power. My name is J. Cal, and this is a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. This is the Alliance Blog Podcast. And over the past few weeks, I guess, I've been critical of the National Wrestling Alliance, not from a place of a hater or someone who just, has sour grapes. Someone who wants to see the NWA fail. There's no Schadenfreude here, fellas. No, I'm here because I want to see the NWA succeed. Now, I know no one from the office is listening to this podcast. Why would they? There's plenty of yes men out there telling them that the Emperor's clothing looks great. My boys, Kevin Frazier, the former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, DKM, and myself, every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, have been talking about how we would improve the NWA. We do pick apart bad booking. We do pick apart, weird interview questions, or we have been picking apart why the NWA is choosing to do some of the things they do, like, release a pay-per-view and have that pay-per-view available for order for 3 weeks without actually giving you any matches, or airing shows on its paid subscription that's essentially recaps that you've already paid for. Or even the most recent atrocity was the last episode of Power Surge, where it was obviously filmed out of order, and those matches probably the match and a couple of the promos should have probably aired much sooner than they did. So there is some continuity issues, and I've been very clear about how I feel about this NWA Power, this new era. I don't want to say it's the Lightning One era, because 3 seasons ago was the Lightning One era, but I guess we can call this the Fight era of the NWA. There's a lot of things that I find to be wrong, but there are many things that I also champion when I see that they're right. Who can deny how great the Pope has been for the National Wrestling Alliance? And although I might have been optimistic at first, adding Chris Adonis to Strictly Business has been, quite enjoyable. And I know that all of these matches were filmed in a span of like 3 or 4 days. So I know that you're trying to put it all together, and it's just not clicking yet. But maybe it will. This was only the first set of tapings. That's got to be part of the drawback if you film stuff in March and it's still on air through April and May, and then coming up to June. So, I guess I could see some of the problems, but I will champion the good things. And one of the good things that I see is the introduction of Jazz as an agent for the women's wrestling for the NWA. I think this is a slam dunk. I think this is a great move. And when we come back, you're going to hear my partner, Kevin Frazier, talk about Jazz, his former trainer, and what she's going to bring to the table for the NWA, and what his hopes are with her being a part of the National Wrestling Alliance in the behind the scenes. So take a listen. But let's talk about something that I really feel like the NWA did a smart thing. In fact, I'm going to celebrate this as probably the best decision they've made since they've come back. And that's because Jazz, who recently retired from in-ring competition, has been hired. She's going to be a part of the NWA going forward as a producer agent for the National Wrestling Alliance. And this is good on so many reasons because, one, Kevin will tell you she eats, breathes, sleeps, dreams. She is pro wrestling. And I feel very good about that. I feel like, wow, that's a great move for the NWA because she's somebody who gets it. She had WrestleMania moments, you know. She's one of 3 people to be an NWA Women's World Champion and a WWE Women's World Champion. So I'm very excited about that. I think this is where, at least in the women's division, we're going to see a step up, right? The other part to this is that, you know, a lot of people were speculating with Thunder Rosa. Her contract expires at the end of the year. A lot of people think she's halfway out already. I kind of feel like that's what the whole May Valentine point was earlier. Jazz is training those talents at Mission Pro at the Dog Pound Dojo. They're literally training talents, and I feel like this might be a good way to see new faces and new blood into the NWA, and at the very least, have that trust that the person producing the match and agenting the match has this experience and is involved. I think this is really good. Kev, I know you have a lot to say about Jazz. I'm gonna hand you the mic.
You know, when Rodney, who was my primary trainer, but Jazz was the person I did a huge amount of my in-ring work with, and a lot of the moves that you saw Jazz do on WWE, I got to be the guy that she messed those moves up on 1 or 2 times. You know, Rodney always told a story about how when they broke in with Junkyard Dog, that Jazz, like JYD, made Jazz. That's what Rodney said. And apparently, from what I know about what he said, like, Rodney never seen a person work harder than Jazz worked during that time. By the time I caught up with them, you know, they had already, you know, started being successful wrestlers. And like, Jazz was a person that we would work on drills for hours. And I don't exaggerate when I say hours. I mean hours. I feel like she would come in after we had been working on this for a long time. She would come in and do everything we did in 15 minutes. Like pop, pop, pop. I mean, she was the best professional wrestler I've ever seen in my life. And like I said, I've been in the ring with Daniel Bryan, who many consider the greatest wrestler of the generation. And I'm telling you right now, Daniel Bryan is not on her level. And that's not a knock, dude. Daniel Bryan is unreal. But I would say Jazz was the most exceptional athlete I've ever been in the same vicinity of. I played football with NFL linebackers and baseball with MLB pros, and I've been in the ring with a who's who of professional wrestlers. And I'm telling you, like, I've never seen an athlete quite like Jazz. I got so many stories I could tell. And the thing that made her exceptional was not her athletic ability, but her unwillingness to settle for anything less than greatness. And I think that is going to be, or could be, something that could help take not only the women's division to the next level, but if she's allowed to produce fruit in that division, it might spill over into the decision-making process in the men's division. I don't think a woman can't book men's wrestling. Period. That's just the way I'm going to say it. I would tell you that she had better ideas than than the majority of the guys that are booking it right now. The other thing is I would love to see Rodney Mack get involved in the booking at some point, and in that same capacity, because we used to do shows in Louisiana when they first got out of WWE, and went down and did a lot of events for them when they first moved back down to Lafayette. And the way they would book the cards, I mean, you felt like you were at like an ECW event, because the things that we were telling you, that I've been telling you about, like how they can use the talent at NWA, actually that's why I learned it, was doing these events. We would have a card of maybe 4 really good wrestlers. So you're not going to book like 6 matches when only 2 of those matches are actually going to be really good. That's just bad booking. So they would book the first half of the show in a way where one night we had a promo that turned into an impromptu match that somehow turned into a tag match that somehow ended up into like a battle royal or something. I don't know. But like, they used the talent in a way that no one was exposed for what they weren't good at. Practice is the place to expose somebody, not in the match in front of the paying fans. That's not the time to make Thunder Rosa look like an idiot. You do that in the back. You do that man-to-man, face-to-face, or woman-to-woman, face-to-face. You don't passively, aggressively throw them under the bus on TV. That's just coward. But they would book the talent in a way where they would use all the strengths. And then the match we'd have, Jazz would come out and do a popcorn match and blow the crowd through the roof in a 6-minute match. And then I would go out and wrestle the semi-main in a work rate match, and Rodney would wrestle a big heavyweight in the big payoff match and beat the hell out of each other. And the fans were just left ecstatic. Like they could not wait till the next show. People were falling out the doors. So I know that Jazz knows how to book, and I know she knows how to coach and direct talent, and I know she won't settle for anything less than the best that they would give them. But like we talked about off air, and I'm going to say it on air, is that I'd like to believe that they're going to allow her to do that. But do I trust them to do that? I don't think there's a lot of trust right now. So I'm not going to say I do. But I'm a man of faith. And faith is amoral. Where you put your faith is what makes it what it is. I'm going to put my faith in something good's going to come out of this. So that's going to be hope. And so I'm going to hope. I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not going to put my green dollar on it. I'm not going to bet on it. But I'm going to hope that they allow Jazz to come in and actually make some changes and do some things, especially in the area of maximizing the talent that they have, because that has been the biggest drop in the NWA so far, is just not maximizing what they have. You've heard me use the 911 comparison. You don't have 911 go out there and wrestle Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero match. You have Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero go out there and wrestle the work rate match. You have 911 come out and squash a crappy match. When Mims and Slice Boogie are out there, you have Jack Stane come out, give 2 spears, and everybody pops out. That's what should have happened. So, there's my 2 cents.
I mean, maximizing potential seems to be what we're all hoping for, right? There's so many good things that the NWA is doing right. There's a lot of things that they're doing wrong. And if Jazz can come in and actually impact those areas where the NWA has been struggling, I mean, that's a win-win for everybody involved. I'm kind of sad that she's coming in as an agent, though, and not as an actual physical pro wrestler. Look, she's always going to be a wrestler. I don't think you could take that DNA out of Jazz. But I think if if given the opportunity to be able to see Jazz in the ring one more time, I think that would be tremendous. And we have to be honest with ourselves, and we're not going to put anything, we're not going to wish for things that aren't going to happen. But could you just imagine if Jazz did get that opportunity to come back one more time? She never lost the women's championship. When she left the NWA, she left on good terms. She had said flat out that it was due to medical and personal issues in her life, that she turned the belt over without defending it. And Dave Lagana was hopeful that they would do business again in the future. Dave Lagana used to be the NWA vice president. And he was hopeful back then in 2019 that they would be able to do business again in the future. And that was after her, essentially forfeiting the title before Crockett Cup 2019. But one of the first title defenses Jazz had as NWA Women's Champion was against Thunder Rosa. In fact, it wasn't the first match. Because her first match was in Georgia, and then she went to Japan to wrestle against Tiny Katrina. But then Hackensack, New Jersey for NWA Big Apple, Black, Blue, and Proud, January the 27th, 2017. She gets a victory over Thunder Rosa. Yeah, that Thunder Rosa. No, I'm not saying there's any animosity there. They're working together. The Dog Pound Dojo is basically the triumvirate of Rodney Mack, Jazz, that's Jazz's husband in case you didn't know, and Thunder Rosa. They're working to improve not just the women wrestlers, but all wrestlers that attend the dojo. But how cool would it be, right, if Thunder Rosa somehow managed to get the 10 pounds of gold? No, to get the Burke back from either Serena Deep or maybe even from Camille. It doesn't really matter for this storyline. And for Jazz to just come out of nowhere and challenge for that title one more time. And I know she's retired. Look, the woman is not a young canary by any stretch of the imagination. She's getting older, and you can't wrestle forever. Mae Young and the Fabulous Moolah were certainly not the norm. And everyone at some point has to slow down, has to stop wrestling. But could you imagine just one more time, one pay-per-view, Jazz versus Thunder Rosa for the Burke? That's a license to print money, isn't it? That's an opportunity to sell tickets. Because when Jazz was NWA Women's World Champion, she was a pretty well, first of all, she held the title for 948 days. That's probably not going to happen again. I don't foresee it happening. Of course it could, but she defeated Amber O'Neal, who then was going by Amber Gallows. Christy Janes, who, if you guys are familiar with Southwestern Wrestling Entertainment, you've seen her before. She's their current women's champion. In fact, the Jazz held that title as well. But, she went on to defend the title throughout NWA promotions, but not just in the NWA. Again, she was in Japan. She was in Canada. She truly was a world traveling champion. She had some big victories at the NWA 70th anniversary show. She defeated Penelope Ford, and literally a week after that, at the Women's Wrestling Revolution, she defeated Jordynne Grace. This woman, she's tough. She came to Hollywood, and as much as we're all fans of Heather Monroe here, she packed Heather Monroe's lunch for her. She has victories over Maria the Maniac. She beat Allie, She beat a lot of up-and-comers, and she beat a lot of established veterans. And when you look at that NWA roster, right, you have Melina, you have Taryn Terrell, You have Thunder Rosa, you have Camille. With any luck on the next round of TV tapings, you're going to still have Genocide, keeping our fingers crossed. You're still going to have Sky Blue, keeping your fingers crossed. Alexia Grancia, I think, is not going to be around, but we don't really know. We don't know anything for sure. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. You have to remember, too, like, in the first 3 seasons of NWA Power, the woman who was kind of doing that job was Allison Kay. When Ashley Vox, Tasha Steeles, Marty Bell, Allison Kay, all 4 of those women were gone. So, yes, Thunder Rosa is quite an accomplished wrestler, and again, she's a trainer now as well. I mean, she could certainly lend a hand when it comes to setting up these matches, but, like, is there anyone better than Jazz? I don't think so. Unlike to Kevin's point, she could probably help the men with their matches too. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Again, all of these TV tapings, all the matches that we've seen for Power and Power Surge, they literally have been for 2 or 3 days worth of tapings. So the next time they get into the Georgia Public Broadcasting Studios, I hope someone comes in with a bunch of notes, and saw what worked and what didn't work, identified the assets that they have, identified who the fans are really getting behind and who the fans would rather not see, and make some executive decisions and book accordingly. It was a little bit easier when the schedule was every other month, but with the way it is now, it's a little bit harder to understand. It's a little bit harder to understand what's going to happen, so many weeks out. So I'm starting to ramble here, so we'll wrap it up. But I think this is great news. This is good news for the NWA. If you're a fan of the NWA, this is a reason to celebrate. I think it's going to bring a lot to the table. That women's division, which has kind of been a strong part of the NWA going back to the first 3 seasons, will continue to be a strong part. And hopefully it will still continue to foster that relationship with Mission Pro Wrestling, and maybe having ties directly to the Dogtown Dojo. Maybe we'll see some new faces from the Southwest wrestling scene make their way to the NWA. But one thing is for sure, we know that there's a lot more to happen, and we won't know anything until after June 6th, after the pay-per-view, and we'll see what happens then. Thanks again for tuning in to the Alliance Blog Podcast, a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you won't miss any future episodes? We'd also like to remind you that we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube at the Alliance Blog. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, and Twitch at the Alliance Blog. Remember, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is essentially your own. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.